Preparing for a Bloomberg AIM interview. You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 15 key questions you're likely to face. For each question, you'll see a sample answer, followed by the key points to cover. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. What is Bloomberg AIM, and where does it fit in an investment management workflow? Bloomberg AIM is Bloomberg's buy-side investment management platform, mainly used as an order and portfolio management system. I think of it as the operating layer between portfolio decisions and downstream execution, compliance, accounting, and reporting. A portfolio manager creates or adjusts trades, AIM checks restrictions and cash, routes orders to traders or brokers, and captures fills. The value is workflow control, auditability, and consistent investment data across teams. While answering, focus on AIM as Bloomberg's buy-side OMS/PMS platform. Its role in trade lifecycle control, compliance, portfolio data, and connectivity with brokers, custodians, accounting, and reporting teams. Question 2. Walk me through the trade lifecycle in Bloomberg AIM from order creation to settlement. Start with the investment decision. The PM models an order, selects accounts, and sends it through pre-trade checks. Once approved, the order moves to trading, where it may be staged, worked, routed through fix, and filled. AIM then supports allocation, average pricing, broker confirmation, and downstream messaging to custodians, accounting, and reconciliation tools. The key is status tracking. Every step should be visible, controlled, and supported by an audit trail. Make sure to cover the full order lifecycle: PM decision, order creation, compliance checks, trading, execution, allocation, confirmation, settlement messaging, and downstream reconciliation or accounting impacts. Question 3. How would you explain pre-trade compliance versus post-trade compliance in Bloomberg AIM? Pre-trade compliance prevents bad orders before execution. In AIM, rules can test concentration limits, restricted lists, cash availability, issuer exposure, regulatory thresholds, or client mandates before a trader acts. Post-trade compliance checks the portfolio after fills, often using final prices, allocations, and actual positions. I'd emphasize both are necessary. Pre-trade reduces preventable breaches, while post-trade catches market movements, late data, or exceptions that only appear after execution. In your answer, distinguish preventive pre-trade controls from detective post-trade monitoring, and mention mandate limits, restricted lists, cash checks, regulatory rules, breaches, overrides, and audit documentation. Question 4. What is an IBOR, and why might AIM positions differ from accounting records? An IBOR is the investment book of record, the front office view of positions, cash exposure, and activity used for decisions. It may differ from accounting because timing and purpose are different. AIM needs current, tradable information, including pending trades and estimated cash, while the IBOR may wait for confirmed settlement, pricing, or NAV processing. In an interview, I'd say breaks are not always errors. They often reflect timing, feeds, or valuation conventions. Be sure to mention IBOR as the front office investment book. Why it includes pending activity and how timing, pricing, settlement, and accounting conventions can create explainable differences. Question 5. How does cash management work in Bloomberg AIM before and after a trade? Cash in AIM is usually projected from settled cash, pending buys and sells, income, fees, subscriptions, redemptions, FX trades, and corporate actions. The goal is to show whether a proposed trade is fundable before it is executed. I would be careful to distinguish actual cash from projected cash, and base currency from local currency. Strong users also monitor settlement dates, overdraft risk, and currency mismatches, because cash errors quickly become operational incidents. While answering, focus on projected versus settled cash, local versus base currency, trade settlement dates, income events, subscriptions, redemptions, FX, overdraft risk, and pre-trained funding checks. Question 6. What is a block trade, and how are allocations handled in Bloomberg AIM? A block trade aggregates demand across accounts so the trader can execute efficiently, then allocate fills fairly. In AIM, the PM or trader can create a block, run compliance, execute and split fills based on model weights, targets, or manual instructions. The interview point is fairness. Allocations must be consistent with policy, not cherry-picked after prices are known. Average pricing, partial fills, and round-in are the areas where controls matter most. Make sure to cover why block trading is used, how fills are allocated across accounts, and the importance of fair allocation policies, average pricing, partial fills, rounding, and audit trails. Question 7. A portfolio manager tries to buy a restricted security in AIM. What should happen? If a PM tries to buy a restricted security, AIM should flag or block the order, depending on the rule severity. My first step would be to confirm the restriction source, effective date, account scope, and whether the security identifier maps correctly. I would not override casually. I'd document the reason, obtain compliance approval if permitted, and keep the audit trail. The priority is preventing a mandate or regulatory breach, not pushing the trade through. In your answer, talk about rule severity, restricted list sources, security identifier mapping, escalation to compliance, permitted overrides, audit evidence, and why preventing breaches is more important than execution speed. Question 8. Why is security master data so important in Bloomberg AIM? Security master quality drives almost everything in AIM. A wrong ISIN, ticker, currency, coupon, maturity, exchange, or derivative attribute can break compliance, valuation, settlement, and exposure reporting. For a new instrument, I'd verify Bloomberg identifiers, economic terms, pricing source, trading calendar, and custodian compatibility. The best answer shows operational awareness. Many trade breaks are not trading mistakes. They are reference data issues that flow into multiple downstream processes. Be sure to mention reference data fields such as ISIN, currency, coupon, maturity, exchange, pricing source, derivatives terms, and how bad security master data can create downstream breaks. Question 9. What is fixed connectivity, and why is it relevant to Bloomberg AIM? FIX is the messaging standard that lets AIM communicate orders and executions electronically with brokers and venues. The practical benefit is speed, reduced manual rekeying, and clean status updates from new order to fill or cancel. If a fix issue occurs, I'd check order state, broker session status, message rejects, required tags, and whether the trade can be handled by an approved manual fallback. Controls matter because connectivity problems can create duplicate or missed orders. While answering, focus on FIX as electronic order and execution messaging. Then cover broker connectivity, order status, rejects, required tags, fallback procedures, and duplicate order controls. Question 10. What daily reconciliations would you expect around Bloomberg AIM? I'd reconcile positions, cash, trades, corporate actions, prices, and sometimes performance inputs between AIM, custodians, accounting systems, and brokers. The aim is to identify breaks early, classify them, assign ownership, and resolve before NAV or client reporting deadlines. A good process separates timing differences from true errors. For example, a trade in AIM may be T-date visible, while the custodian only reflects it after settlement or confirmation. Make sure to cover daily position, cash, trade, price, and corporate action reconciliations, plus break classification, ownership, timing differences, custodian feeds, broker data, and NAV deadlines. Question 11. How are corporate actions handled in a Bloomberg AIM environment? Corporate actions matter because they change positions, cash, and exposure without a normal trade decision. In AIM, events like dividends, stock splits, mergers, tender offers, and bond calls must be captured with correct dates and elections. I would check whether the event affects compliance or model weights after processing. For voluntary actions, the key is workflow. Notify the PM, record the election, meet custodian deadlines, and reconcile the final outcome. In your answer, talk about mandatory and voluntary events, elections, key dates, position and cash impact, custodian deadlines, compliance effects, PM notification, and final reconciliation of processed actions. Question 12. How would you manage multi-currency cash and FX exposure in Bloomberg AIM? Multi-currency portfolios need control over local cash, base currency exposure, and FX settlement. In AIM, A foreign equity purchase may create a local currency cash need, and FX trade and translation effects on exposure and performance. I'd explain that FX is not just a valuation overlay. It affects funding, compliance, hedging ratios, and settlement risk. Strong teams monitor projected cash by currency and confirm spot, forward, and swap details carefully. Be sure to mention local and base currency cash, FX trades, settlement risk, hedging, translation exposure, forwards or swaps, projected cash by currency, and compliance or performance effects. Question 13. A trade booked in AIM fails to settle. How would you investigate it? If a trade fails, I would first confirm the economics: security, quantity, price, account, broker, custodian, settlement date, and instructions. Then I'd identify whether the break is cash, securities, SSI, counterparty, or market-related. AIM helps because the trade history, allocations, confirmations, and status can be reviewed centrally. The response should be controlled. Escalate to operations and trading, document updates, avoid duplicate bookings, and consider client or NAV impact. While answering, focus on diagnosing settlement failures by checking economics, allocation, SSI, cash, securities availability, broker and custodian status, escalation workflow, duplicate booking risk, and NAV impact. Question 14. What portfolio reporting or analytics would a portfolio manager expect from AIM? PMs use AIM not only to enter orders, but to understand current portfolio exposure before making decisions. Typical views include holdings, cash, sector and issuer exposure, duration, country, currency, unrealized gain or loss, and compliance status. I'd connect reporting to action. If a portfolio is overweight technology or short cash after pending trades, AIM should make that visible before new orders are released to traders. Make sure to cover holdings, cash, exposures, sector, issuer, country, currency, duration, gains and losses, compliance status, pending trades, and how reporting supports portfolio decisions. Question 15. How would you distinguish PMS, OMS, and EMS functionality when discussing Bloomberg AIM? A PMS focuses on portfolio construction, holdings, cash, exposures, and decision support. An OMS manages the order workflow: creation, compliance, approvals, routing, allocations, and audit trail. An EMS is more execution-focused, giving traders market access, liquidity tools, and execution analytics. Bloomberg AIM can cover PMS and OMS capabilities and connect to execution channels. In interviews, I'd avoid rigid labels and explain the workflow problem each layer solves. In your answer, distinguish PMS, OMS, and EMS functions clearly. Then explain AIM's overlap across portfolio management, order workflow, compliance, execution connectivity, allocation, and audit control. If you are still with us, congratulations, you are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.